Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in. This is Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we continue the new week here, Monday through Friday. Just a reminder, we're with you every single day. Mike D'Ambrosio is with me today, but on Mondays, Mike does his show solo, and then we are together on Tuesdays as a reminder. I will do Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then I jump in on Fridays with Bobby and Buddy. Just a reminder, if you have any real estate needs at all, buying, selling, you need someone to consult with, it's a crazy market. Mike's going to talk a little bit about that when we get started, but contact Mike if you have any questions, anything to do with real estate. You could reach him via email, mike@reradiolive.com, or you could text or contact him at 408-630-0101. On the financing side, if you need any help on purchases, refinancing, any restructuring of debt, I can help you with that. You could reach me at joe@reradiolive.com, or you could always contact me at 408-838-9060. So Mike and I are going to cover a couple different things today. I'm going to have Mike, he's going to jump in, give us a market kind of review what's going on as we roll into 2017. We're almost 30 days in. And then we're going to talk about closing costs and all the details about closing costs.
Dun, dun.
Yeah.
Closing costs.
We're going to be able to do this in 30 minutes? It's going to be tough.
I hope so.
It's going to take 30 minutes just to talk about what it stands for, closing costs. So. Pretty crazy stuff. Hopefully regulations will change in 2017 and we'll get some more smart, user-friendly documents. But anyway, until then, why don't you get us started, Mike? Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the market. I know you got some data, some stuff to talk about, and interesting times as we start 2017, huh?
Yeah. It wasn't until a couple weeks ago when we at my office meetings, I usually put together some stats for all of our. We have about 125 agents, and so I do a lot of stats at the office meeting through MLS and what's going on. And a lot of times when I run the data, it goes back 3 years, 4 years. And so I had thought the last 2 or 3 Januaries we were at low inventory until I really ran the numbers and I came out of my my holiday hibernation and ran the numbers. And I realized, and this is as of literally 15 seconds ago as you're doing the intro, we only have, so for a lot of the listeners that are not from the area, we're in Santa Clara County, which is Silicon Valley. Right. Essentially, it's the bulk of Silicon Valley. So whenever I give stats out, either on my show or in the past, it's always been based on Santa Clara County, which goes all the way down to Gilroy, all the way as north to Milpitas. So it's a very large geographic area. And according to Larry Stone, the assessor, I believe there's a roughly, how many... it was about 125,000.
Sounds about right.
Single-family properties. So, with all of that background, we have 545 active properties on the market, active single-family homes on the market, and 188 condos and townhouses. So, roughly under 750 total houses for sale, and I'm not talking multifamily and all that other stuff. The big three, which is single-family, condos, townhouses.
And this is Santa Clara County.
This is the entire county of Santa Clara. So think of it this way, just to give you so we're sitting in Los Gatos right now. There's 5 major real estate companies in Los Gatos, okay? And each of those offices have about 100 to 200 agents in them. So just in Los Gatos alone, we have almost 1,000 real estate agents that all, I'm guessing, at least have one buyer they're working with. Okay, that's in one little city.
That's a good point. A good way to look at it, yeah.
And so just imagine how many real estate agents there are in the entire county that are going after 750 properties. It's pretty crazy. So the last 2 or 3 years, there was 1,100, 1,200 in January. So it was still very low. So this, it really shocked me when I looked at that number. And so, yeah, that was kind of interesting. But with all that being said, I do know that, just based on what I'm talking to my real estate
Mm-hmm.
friends and going to tour meetings and even our office meetings, people have a lot of inventory coming
Right.
up. One of the home inspectors I know that does mainly listing inspections said his inspections have doubled in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay,
so he's got he's helping a lot of people prep stuff.
Okay.
So it's just natural once Super Bowl hits. But we'll see. I mean, we're starting at a lower point now, so it's going to be interesting to see where we end up come, April, May, June, July.
That's great to know. So anybody's guess, where would you think the next kind of earmark or checkpoint's going to be right after the Super Bowl, like in the next 2 to 3 weeks?
Yeah, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, usually. Because if you look at it this way, and I was telling some buyers this the other day, some buyers we're working together with, I said, look, if something doesn't come on this week, which I'm talking now, to have open houses for this weekend, they're going to wait till after the Super Bowl, because who's going to want to put their property on the market next week? And they're not going to do an open house on Super Bowl. Now, granted, maybe they'll do an open house the Saturday before Super Bowl, but to get maximum exposure, my guess is that they're going to wait till after the Super Bowl to do it. So in the coming weeks of podcasts that we do together, let's definitely keep an eye on the inventory, because usually the 2 big weekends are Super Bowl weekend, and then usually after tax day, usually the 2 big ones.
That's a good point. So, one of the things I was thinking about, and tell me what you think and see if there's any merit to this. This is a very unusual period of rain we've had in the last 6-7 weeks, right? I think it all started in kind of December, mid-December. We had these streaks now where we're getting 5, 6, 7 days of rain.
Yep.
Do you believe that that's had a little bit of an impact on people potentially? I mean, looking at the weather patterns going, do I really want to do this? I mean, if we have this weather pattern, I mean, could that be a little bit? It's obviously not going to rule everybody, but.
No, I think it could, people kind of go into hibernation sometimes in that. So I think it plays a little part. But with that being said, and I'm sure there's people listening across the country here, we're very fortunate to be doing real estate in this area, because we don't get snowed into our homes for 2-3 months at a time. It's kind of hard to show 10 properties in a day when you have to drive through the snow. So there's a lot of other real estate agents around the country that get, literally can't work if there's a severe snowstorm. But funny story, I'm in my backyard yesterday, and I have this overhang with it's got the canopy on it, which got torn to shreds because it got sunbeaten, and then one rip turned into the whole thing. So I got to get a new one now. So I'm taking all that down, and my neighbor next door, she's this older lady, very nosy, and she's like telling me when she first bought the house in 1967, there was 40 days straight of rain in when she bought it. And she was like, and then so there was like leaks and stuff, or when you buy a house, usually it hasn't rained for 40 days in a row, so they probably haven't had leaks. So anyways, she yells at me over the fence, which is why I'm getting a fence bid to get a taller fence, because she's kind of a pain in the what. So anyways,
be careful, she might have a ladder.
Yeah, she might. So anyways, side story, but so that's that.
That's good. And what we should do in the next couple of months too, or certainly sometime, is that what I thought of as you were talking about being snowed in and all this stuff. What are we going to start? Are you going to start issuing goggles for virtual reality to people?
We might have to.
Technology is getting pretty good, by the way.
It's amazing. It is.
You could put a pair of those goggles on, and I know that it's coming. The biggest thing last year with real estate was you go online and they had these wonderful 3D kind of aerial images with the drones and all that.
Yeah.
But do you see a time, and we won't take up too much time now, where not everything in general, but a person that's out of the country, out of the area, could put a set of these on and you could walk them through it?
Oh, it's already here. I forget the name of the company. There's one called Oculus Rift, I think it's called. I believe it's owned by Facebook, but they have this technology now where they bring in a camera that takes 360 photos of each room, and then you can literally put on these goggles and go into each room if you're
walking
in, and you can look around, kind of like those 360 videos on Facebook, but to another level. That is already here. And then even some of the companies locally that Intero uses a lot, they have these dollhouse virtual tours. So what I mean by a dollhouse is, we're not just doing your typical virtual tours anymore where it's like a picture and then a next picture. It's literally, they have this dollhouse view where it's half the house cut in half, like a dollhouse. Okay. And then you can click your mouse onto the room you want to go into. So then it'll zoom you into the room, and then you can look around and see what's going on.
So are they going to have the smell of cookies in the background? And
probably they'll have a little scent. They'll have a little scent thing on your computer. Right. So that's the next
lavender,
thing. Yeah,
chocolate
exactly.
chip cookies. What else they do? Cinnamon water. I think.
Exactly. So that technology is definitely here now. I don't know how many people are going to adopt it, or how many people are going to want to buy those types of goggles, or if they're going to be, or maybe if they're in a real estate office for you to go use them, maybe that's more feasible. But that technology is here. The Terminator technology is here. So,
well, as time goes on, maybe during the course of the year, we could do some shows on the future of real estate, if we will, and lending for that matter too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's changing. Here we are in Silicon Valley. Sometimes I feel like, are we doing our part?
Right.
You know what I mean? It kind of puts some subtle pressure on.
It does.
You see all these high-tech companies and a lot of things they're doing, and then you're thinking, maybe we should be doing some of this stuff too, right? It
does put pressure on, but I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So anything else what would you say, as we'll take a quick break in a minute. We'll come back and we'll chat about closing costs, getting into more depth. Just maybe a last summary about the housing over the next couple of weeks until we talk again about this. Obviously, any sellers, if you're having, give you a call. That's the takeaway. Is if you're thinking about selling, getting it on the market sooner than later right now to take advantage of the massive amount of buyers there are, and the the competition. That's going to get you the maximum price. Very good. If you are interested, give us a call. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll jump into closing costs and much more.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Kuchera of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are your go-to resource for all aspects of real estate, including buying, selling, refinancing, building, and legal and tax advice, and much more. You can subscribe to Real Estate Radio Live podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to an engaging discussion about anything and everything real estate. So make sure you get our app, RE Radio Live, in the iTunes store to follow the show.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in, Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series. I'm sitting alongside Mike D'Ambrosio. Today we're talking about the second half to your closing costs, which are really confusing for the average person who hasn't been through this. There's so many different fees and
they're confusing for me.
They're confusing for me. I'll take it to another level.
That's right.
And the disclosures that go along with it. Mike, I think we could start just by saying, before we even get to the closing costs, let's talk a little bit about when you meet a client, you're working with them, they're buying a home. And just to get some estimates to them, right? That's kind of where the whole thing starts, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the first question for a lot of people is about commission on the real estate side of things. For a home buyer, it's free because the seller pays commissions.
Correct.
So really, then I kind of defer them to you for the loan fees because those change all the time. That's not my part of the business. So just to get that out there, in California, commissions are paid by the seller.
Right.
So we can get into that in a whole nother show. But so basically, on your end is really the loan and a couple of minor escrow fees for buyers, but for the most part, it goes to Joe to talk about that. So.
It does, and the difficult thing, I think, the most challenging thing about our business and the lending. For instance, when you sell a house, it's a percentage. You guys have a percentage, right? You get in the contract, and you say it's 6%, it's 5%. This is it's pretty simple. So if I sell myself a house for $1 million, you know it. Yeah, you give them a net sheet, and boom, you're done. That's pretty much it. With lending, a lot of our fees and costs, I don't say all of them, but everything's driven by an interest rate, and a lot of people it's hard to understand, but the rate kind of dictates. And what I mean by that is, Mike, if someone could say, hey, great news, and you hear it all the time on the radio, and that's all marketing trying to get you to call in and check in with them. But they advertise this exciting interest rate.
Yeah.
but then in a really fast, long-winded disclosure that you don't understand, in order to market a rate like that, what they'll do is basically say there's a lot of origination costs. So if someone's paying points, in essence, to buy down that rate.
Or on the opposite side of things, you sometimes hear no fees.
Yeah, there you go. There's another part.
No points loans.
True.
And
right.
so then that
no
gets
cost at all.
So then, yeah, exactly. No cost at all. So, but the cost is, buddy, you're going to be paying a nicely higher rate than normal, right? So they build that in.
Yeah. So I think that to summarize as easy as I can, and it is challenging, is that no matter what anybody tells you, and I've said this before, no matter what anybody tells you, there is no free loan and there is no free. So like Mike said, if someone says, hey, exciting news, we have a no point, no cost, or no cost loan, that's not true.
Yeah.
If they're saying there's no closing costs, Mike, what they're doing is they're increasing the interest rate.
Right.
Right? So your payment might be $150 a month more.
Yep.
And you're thinking, oh, this is great, I'm not paying any closing costs. But guess what? For the next 10, 15, 20 years, you are paying it through the teeth.
Absolutely. And you're probably paying more, I would guess, based on interest and whatnot.
Right. So just be careful. First of all, when someone tells you no cost, I would actually be very skeptical, and hopefully you're working with someone you trust, because it could get very confusing. You really want to strike a balance. And I will tell you, in today's market, for the most part, purchases could be a little bit different depending if you're getting some closing credit and some things. You want to stay away from paying points or origination fees unless it financially makes sense. And most of the time, Mike, I would say 90% of the time it probably doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, where it does is, let's say you negotiate for a client for whatever reason, they're getting, $7,000 back in some kind of credit, right? That might be a time, as a lender, we say, what are the best use of that $7,000, right? Maybe buying down the rate, because that's someone else is paying for that.
Yeah. Or covering the costs.
The closing costs.
So talk about a little bit about what are some of the main fees involved in closing costs on the loan side of things, and then I can talk briefly about the minor real estate side. Yeah,
some of the stuff you're going to see is typically there's some kind of lender fee, Mike, and they might show it as a lender fee. They may show it as an origination fee. It's confusing. In some cases, you're going to get somewhere between $795 and $1,500 to $1,600 that's going to cover underwriting, your lending fee in general, processing. People have different names for it.
Right.
But one of the things you'll see, the biggest number is going to be there, and it'll be like a lending fee or underwriting and processing.
Okay.
You might see some credit reporting fees, some tax service, and of course there's going to be an appraisal fee in there.
Yeah.
Now the appraisal fee usually is going to be $500 to $550 roughly. That's just ballpark, unless, and this is the thing you have to be careful with, if it's a more expensive property, typically, or a bigger lot, it's a unique property, maybe you're buying a duplex, whatever, then those appraisal costs could go up.
They could.
Yeah, they could go up. I mean, I'm doing one right now, and the purchase, not that's a refinance, but the approximate value is $5.5 million. Well, that's going to be about a $12,000 to $1,300 appraisal.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
some commercial appraisals are $5,000 to $10,000, depending on how long and how much work they have to do.
Right.
But for a house, it's not that, so don't freak out, everyone that's listening.
Yeah. So they've tried to simplify these forms, but I could tell you I'm in this industry, and I wouldn't, mislead anybody. They're still very confusing, honestly. Mm-hmm. They're a little bit better, but for the most part, they're still very confusing, especially if you're someone that hasn't done a loan in a couple of years, or if you haven't financed, which we have. What happens a lot, someone hasn't financed in 8 to 10 years, let's say, and they haven't seen any of this stuff. They don't know about the new regulations and disclosures and stuff. So on these closing costs, the one thing that I would say is when you get the estimated fees from someone, just, the simple part, Mike, is just have them sit down either, in person or on the phone and go through them with you.
Right.
Just go through them line item. That's the simplest way to do it.
Right.
And just ask the questions up front. And again, remember, one of the challenging things when you're getting an estimated closing costs on our end before you've identified a property is you really don't know the details. So those could change a little bit. It's a bit of a moving target.
But at least you have it, if you go over it with someone that's professional, you'll have a general idea. That way you're not shocked at the closing table as to what you're you're paying out.
Yeah.
On the real estate side, if I just touch on that really quick,
Sure.
on the buy side, so like especially in Santa Clara County where we are, it's mainly a seller paid county. Now every county differs, but sellers are going to pay for escrow, title fees, and county transfer tax. But in some cities in Santa Clara, you pay a city transfer tax, which is typically split 50-50 between the buyer and seller.
Okay.
So that's usually per $1,000. So if it's $1 million price, you divide that by 1,000. You multiply that by $3.30. You divide that by 2. So roughly, I'm not going to go through that whole scenario.
Got everybody reaching for their calculator.
Yeah. So basically, you're looking at on like $1 million price, you're looking at on the buy side like $1,500 in city transfer tax, and then some people get a home warranty. Some people's agents buy them a home warranty. Like me, that's usually it's a gift I do for all my buyers. It's usually $450. And that's really it on the real estate side. Mostly everything else kind of comes on the other end.
Yeah, on closing costs, again, I would say know what you're getting into. Have someone, whoever you're working with, sit down, go through them. The other thing I would say is be careful if you're working with someone that you don't have a relationship with. I find this a lot, Mike, where someone will say, Joe, I'm getting these estimates, and it's a relo company. They have the relo companies, both lender and the real estate side.
Right.
And I get this a lot too. They'll say, there's this guy in Chicago I'm talking to with Wells or whatever, right?
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, I don't have any idea.
Yep.
But they're sending me these fees. I can't get a hold of the guy because of the time difference, blah, blah, blah. So I'll go over it with them. So these are the things to just be aware of. Make sure you understand them totally. And then also to understand that the fact that it is a moving target. If you're not in the contract yet, loan amounts could change.
Yeah.
Interest rate. You can't lock an interest rate until you've identified a property. So at the time, for instance, let's say you're quoting 4% on a 30-year money, and it's today.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, you get in the contract, and the rate goes up or down. That could change a little bit.
Yeah, and it could change your payment too.
Right.
And we work with buyers together all the time, and it's always just smart to run the scenario by I always tell them, hey, run this by Joe, just to make sure, because some people are right at that edge, right at the edge of comfort to non-comfort, and you want to make sure they stay in that comfort zone.
Right.
And so why not run it by you? That's what you're there for. That's what you as a lender, Joe, are there, and you enjoy doing that and helping them make the right financial decision. I mean, again, I always say this analogy: you're not buying a cup of coffee or here. We're buying $500 to $1 million to $1.5 million investment, and so you need to make sure you're running the numbers properly. So it's just important.
Watch the one thing I would say. One thing on the lending side, I was trying to think. The red flag, I should say, is something you should really take your eyes to immediately on that sheet, Mike, and is either origination fee, points, lender fee. Look at that right away, because there's a lot of stuff that's built in that someone might not understand. And the other part, which is in there, which I think could be confusing, Mike, on a purchase is, you're estimating property tax for the first time, potentially, right?
Yeah.
You're getting into a home. Let's say you're buying it for $1 million, prorated property tax. Depending on the time of the year, you might have some of that.
Utilities.
Homeowners insurance.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes up a lot, too, I want to take just a few seconds to talk about is impound accounts.
Yeah.
A lot of people, this is what's really important, too. If you decide to, if you're a new homeowner, you don't know about this, but if you're existing, you have an option of what's called impound accounts, and what that means is basically you can make arrangements so that when you get your monthly mortgage payment, your property taxes and insurance could be all inclusive with that mortgage payment.
Right.
That's impound accounts. Some people go, that's great, that makes all kinds of sense. But then you have to really explain to them what that means. What that means is, in escrow, then you might have to come up, depending on the purchase amount, the loan amount, you might have to come up with another $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah,
right.
To seed that,
and that could make the difference of someone's closing costs or maybe cash to close. So keep an eye on that too. If you have any information on impound accounts, keep an eye on that and what that means.
The other thing too is, and I know we're almost up to it, but HOA fees too get involved in the whole.
That's true.
HOA costs on the closing side.
Yep.
So I mean, if you're not getting the point of what we're talking about here, is work with a professional to help you figure all this stuff out. Someone you know, like, and trust. Then you'll be okay. So
yeah.
Anyways.
All right, we're going to wrap things up. Mike, thanks. Always good to be with you each week. And remember, if you have any questions, information, you can go to reradiolive.com. Until next time, thank you and take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.